Have you ever wondered what happens when global giants lose clout, not through conflict, but through economics? In this countdown, we explore 7 countries that quietly shifted to choosing Canada over the United States in 2025, all in response to Trump's escalating tariffs. By the end, you'll be surprised which nation leads and why this matters more than you think. Let's begin at number 7. Number 7. Germany. Germany's export-dependent economy suffered a significant blow when the U.S. implemented sweeping 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum imports in March 2025, part of broader measures targeting multiple global partners. As a result, German exports to the U.S. plunged, trade faced increased costs, and mechanical engineering orders fell sharply amid rising uncertainty. With the U.S. market suddenly less reliable, German firms began urgently searching for stable alternatives to safeguard supply chains, maintain profit margins, and preserve competitiveness. In direct response, many of Germany's key exporters rerouted shipments through Ontario's auto corridor, avoiding punitive duties by leveraging North American production networks. Machinery and renewable energy companies redirected exports to Canada, where buyers welcomed precision-engineered German turbines and industrial equipment. Simultaneously, trade delegations pivoted southward, refocusing on trade offices and innovation hubs in Toronto and Vancouver as more predictable engagement partners. This strategic shift not only cushioned Germany against U.S. volatility but also deepened economic ties with Canada in sectors ranging from automotive to cleantech R&D. Country 6. Mexico. When U.S. President Donald Trump enacted sweeping 25% tariffs on automobile and agriculture exports from Mexico beginning March 4, 2025, it unleashed major disruptions across North American trade. Mexico's export-driven industries, particularly autos and fresh produce, faced instant cost shocks, with producers suddenly burdened by duties and logistical uncertainty. Despite temporary exemptions under the USMCA applying to roughly half of Mexican exports, the broader exposure triggered urgent strategic shifts as businesses scrambled to preserve margins and market access. In a proactive response, Mexican exporters turned increasingly toward Canada as a reliable market, especially for agricultural goods and auto components. Shipments of avocados, berries, and tequila to Canadian distributors climbed, and several automotive suppliers established new assembly lines in Windsor and St. Catharines. These moves leveraged USMCA-compliant production to maintain tariff-free flows into North America while shielding export revenue from U.S. instability. By diversifying through Canada, Mexican businesses mitigated tariff-driven disruption, strengthened supply chain resilience, and deepened regional economic ties. Country 5. South Korea. Facing a looming 25% U.S. tariff on imports from South Korea scheduled for August 1, 2025, South Korean industries, particularly in high-tech sectors, braced for economic turbulence and trade uncertainty. In response, firms accelerated their investments in Canada's burgeoning EV and semiconductor ecosystems, reducing reliance on volatile U.S. trade routes. The existing Canada-Korea Free Trade Agreement, in effect since January 2015 and eliminating nearly all tariffs between the two nations, created a stable framework for cross-border expansion. During early 2025, major South Korean corporations like LG Energy Solution, Samsung, and POSCO Future-M launched multi-billion-dollar EV battery, semiconductor, and materials projects in Ontario and Quebec. LG's joint venture with Stellantis began battery module production in Windsor, while POSCO built a cathode materials plant in Quebec to secure cleantech supply lines. These moves allowed export-driven South Korean firms to maintain tariff-free access into North America under the U.S. Canada trade regime, diversify their supply chains, and mitigate risks linked to U.S. protectionism. Country 4. Netherlands. When President Trump introduced 25% tariffs on European agricultural goods and floriculture exports, including Dutch cheese and tulip bulbs, in early 2025, Dutch exporters faced immediate obstacles accessing the U.S. market. In response, many suppliers rerouted shipments to Canadian ports, where rising demand for premium European dairy and flowers offered a more stable path. Canada's increasingly diversified food import strategy welcomed Dutch high-value exports, helping offset rising trade disruptions caused by U.S. policy shifts. Meanwhile, forward-looking Dutch agritech firms turned their gaze to Canada for long-term collaboration. Seeking a secure and innovation-friendly environment, they launched smart farming campus investments and greenhouse partnerships across Ontario and British Columbia. These ventures are not only facilitating Dutch tech transfer in cold climate cultivation, but also deepening Canadian competitive capacity in automated greenhouse systems. As a result, Canada quickly became a preferred trade and R&D partner for the Netherlands, especially in dairy, flowers, and agriculture technology, positioning itself as a resilient alternative to U.S. markets. Country 3. Brazil. Facing dramatic trade shifts in 2025, Brazilian meat and ethanol producers were hit hardest by newly proposed U.S. tariffs up to 50% on all Brazilian imports starting August 1, sharply affecting staple products like beef, orange juice, and aircraft components. While only about 1% of Brazil's ethanol exports go to the U.S., the brewing tariff environment still disrupted strategic planning, prompting Brazilian industry leaders to reassess dependency on their second-largest export market. In response, Brazilian exporters rapidly redirected their focus to Canada, securing contracts in processed meat and ethanol blending mandates, particularly in provinces like Manitoba, where renewable fuel blends are in high demand. At the same time, infrastructure and energy collaborations expanded. Industries such as JBS and steel fabricators pursued multi-billion-dollar deals with Canadian counterparts to anchor supply lines and investment flows. This alignment deepened Brazil-Canada ties and offered a resilient alternative to an unstable U.S. trade landscape, reinforcing Canada's role as a secure partner for strategic export industries. Country 2. France. When U.S. trade policy imposed 25% tariffs on French luxury goods, including high-end wine, fashion, and aerospace components, in early 2025, French exports to the U.S. slumped sharply. These sectors, which collectively account for over a third of France's transatlantic trade, were particularly vulnerable to these sweeping tariffs. At the same time, growing protectionism served as a critical wake-up call for French exporters to diversify, leading many to shift their focus toward Canadian markets where demand for premium goods and industrial technology was rising steadily. In response, France and Canada expanded strategic trade cooperation, launching mechanisms to mitigate tariffs and support targeted joint R&D, especially in aerospace and agritech. Airbus supplier Safran, for instance, considered Canada's Quebec aerospace hub as a promising site for a new carbon brake facility, despite U.S. trade pressure. This collaboration has deepened with bilateral agreements designed to protect key industries from trade volatility, positioning Canada as a reliable partner for French innovation and trade resiliency. Country 1. United Kingdom. In early 2025, as U.S. tariffs surged under Trump, especially on manufactured goods, energy, and industrial products, the United Kingdom emerged as Canada's top alternative trading partner. Canadian goods exports to the UK, US, EU, Australia, Indonesia, and Japan saw robust growth, including a staggering 473% increase in gold exports to the UK, reflecting a broader shift in market reliance. With uncertainty around US trade policy mounting and Canada looking to diversify, the UK quickly became a strategic path forward. British importers seeking high-quality machinery, automotive parts, and critical minerals accelerated their sourcing from Canadian suppliers. At the same time, Canada expanded trade outreach from London to regional UK hubs, emphasizing its reliability amid US volatility. Experts caution that while this diversification cannot fully replace US trade, it signifies a growing confidence in Canada's role as stable, growth-oriented partner beyond the immediate turmoil. Partnerships ranging from nickel and lithium exports to tech components and specialty goods reinforced this realignment in 2025. As we've seen, this behind-the-scenes deep dive shows how countries from Germany all the way up to France strategically realigned their trade, technology, and diplomatic ties with Canada in 2025, triggered by escalating U.S. tariffs under Trump. These 7 cases are more than economic anecdotes. They illustrate how global nations adapt to protect supply chains, leverage innovation, and form more stable partnerships. Canada emerges not as a fallback option, but as a co-innovation hub and diversification destination for high-value industries. This shift isn't just about numbers, it reflects a changing global narrative where strategic foresight trumps tariff-driven politics. Which country's pivot surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Discovery Trail for more insightful global stories that redefine power, trade, and innovation.